Hello, everyone. I'm Pratik Gandhi, your co-host for today, and with me is Yogesh Gandhi, who's joining us from London. And we want to welcome you all to the third episode of Lockdown Conversations, where during the lockdown, we deconstruct the key fundamentals around topics that matter the most. We believe that this place is to unite and inspire. Today, we will be discovering the world of crypto, blockchains, and everything around that. We will understand why experts believe that crypto can change the world and why crypto is looked upon as the future today more than ever while the world is entering into a crisis situation. I'm personally very excited as I've been in this space for about 3, 4 years. And yeah, I've closely looked at the ups and downs in this space. So to discuss all of this and to answer your questions, we've got three brilliant speakers working relentlessly in the crypto sphere for the past several years. Starting with, and let me introduce, starting with Saurabh Sharma, who's tuning in with us from Pune. Saurabh is an entrepreneur who's toiling to bring the change the way masses learn, understand, and adopt the up and coming emerging technologies. He's a tech blogger who first founded Techie Scoops, tech media company, and served as a Asia media uh, relations advisor to Bitwings, based out of Spain, and has also done an independent research on blockchain. I'm proud to be associated with Saurabh on the project he's currently building, the Blockchain School, which is an integrated learning platform for everything blockchain. Welcome, Saurabh.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. So our next speaker is joining in from Mumbai, Neeraj Thakur. Neeraj and I have been friends since 2013, and we've been discussing crypto as we got into the space almost at the same time, I think around 2017 or so. Neeraj currently heads marketing at Delta Exchange, a crypto derivatives exchange. He's quite curious about crypto and all things tech, having experienced his first Bitcoin transaction back in 2013. He's been looked onto crypto ecosystem ever since and is very passionate about the same. Welcome, Neeraj. Thanks for joining in.
Thanks for having me, Pratik.
Yep. And our third speaker for today is Rajan Soni, who's joining us from the Pink City, Jaipur. Uh, Rajan is an electronics engineer turned quant trader. He's founded like amazing startups, Meritless.in, CoinScanner. He's interested. I mean, he has varied interests in terms of fintech, cryptocurrencies, online education, fitness, biohacking, and consciousness. Rajan and I worked briefly on one of the crypto projects, and yeah, I mean, we closely discuss about things that happen in this space. Excited to have you, Rajan. Welcome on
Thanks,
the show.
Pratik. Thanks so much.
And yeah, thank you. I'd also like to thank the audience today. I mean, we see like a good number here, and I'm sure this is going to be exciting for you guys, and you guys can take some good value out of it. Before we start, I'd like to get away with all the disclaimers because this is a topic which is pretty, I don't know, like sensitive, I guess. So yeah, for the speakers, this is going to be a recorded live stream. We've already started the recording, and this will stay on multiple platforms. I also want to request you guys do not be obligated for any reason. Feel free to express your thoughts and opinions with the flow of the conversations and the questions that we get from the audience. For everyone else, the content in the session is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as legal, business, investment advice. You should consult your own advisors as to legal, business, tax, other related matters. Any projections, estimates, forecasts, targets, prospects, or opinions expressed in this session are subject to change without notice and may differ or be contrary to the opinions expressed by others. So the goal of this conversation is to make as participative as we can. So my appeal to the audience is also to like ask as many as questions, but at the same time also be mindful of the fact that crypto is vast. So, and we might not be able to cover everything in just 60 minutes. So yeah, just be mindful about that. So yeah, with that, let's dive right in.
So
Yeah, sorry, Yogesh,
Pratik,
you want to, yeah.
yeah. So you've introduced all our panelists today, and it's fantastic to have all of them all, and you've gone through our initial nitty gritties as we usually do. And when we were kind of talking about having this session today on cryptocurrency, I basically said, how many days do we have for this session? But obviously, in the interest of time, we'll probably try and stick it, try and keep it to
Yep.
a short and manageable time frame. But we've got some great questions coming in, and I think for any session to be successful, right, you need people who know it all. And I believe most of these people who are on the panel know most of these things about cryptocurrency. But you also need people who don't know so much about it, so that you can ask the right questions. And I'm one of those. So I think when it comes to cryptocurrency, there are more questions people have than the answers, and I sort of want to bring some of them to the table today. And I'd probably start with just asking from the very basics of it, what is cryptocurrency and how is it linked with blockchain? If you should just start with that basic premise. hmm Over to our panels.
Anybody wants to take this up? Neeraj, Saurabh, Neeraj, you want to?
Yeah. So at the core fundamentals, basically, cryptocurrency is basically decentralized distributed ledger. Okay, that's
Yeah.
basically the definition of blockchain, very simplistic. Okay, so I am just to keep the scope of this podcast very simple. Okay, I'll be using terms which are oversimplified. Perhaps you can look up the definitions and exact deep down
Yeah.
dives. There is plethora of material available on this. So basically, why this came into existence is to eliminate third parties or the middlemen, okay, which you usually see in the traditional financial markets, which are banking sectors. So why it came into existence was 2008. That was when Satoshi Nakamoto on October 31st announced or launched Bitcoin white paper. Okay, and this was the same time around when the economy crashed across the world. There were bailouts. Okay, January 3rd, 2009 was when the Genesis block was actually mined. That was the start of the Bitcoin blockchain as such. So the core fundamental difference, if you see, is when you transact in a traditional financial system, which is a banking system, if you want to send a transaction from person A to person B overseas, so there are a lot of different checks involved, which are usually carried out by central parties, which are banks or clearing houses. Okay.
Correct.
Now it takes days to actually settle the transaction in the back end, even though you might
Right.
see a reflection of that, but actual settlement takes time. This is because
Mhm.
of the involvement of third parties, and they actually verify the transaction and maintain the state of the ledger on both sides.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about blockchain, especially I'll take example of Bitcoin as a blockchain, which is first app using the blockchain. Now, what it did was it actually eliminated the need for the third party to verify these transactions. Okay.
Right.
Now, this was done obviously through cryptography and consensus protocol, which is proof of work. And it allowed a system of users in a peer-to-peer network to actually come into consensus and verify transactions in almost real time. And every 10 minutes, the uh, Bitcoin network actually then added blocks, verified blocks of transactions
Yeah.
to the whole blockchain. And if you see, the fundamental difference is the elimination of third parties, okay, and giving the power over to the people and the network itself. So that's what I'll define as a simple fundamental difference between blockchain and a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin with the traditional existing financial markets.
So
Great.
to bring in something up here,
Mhm.
we using a platform like everybody does, platform called Torrent. So Torrent was best example for understanding the ecosystem. It was working peer to peer, and that's how the cryptocurrencies operate, and that's what the whole agenda of blockchain is. So peer to peer, the transaction, the power goes in hands of the owners, right? So we two are transacting.
Right.
I'm sending something to you, Yogesh. So now the powers are with us, and that's what happened. And 2008 crisis was one of the best time, because that's where the whole system got broken, and the the banking system, financial system. And that's where blockchain or Bitcoin got an opportunity to rise. That's how
Right.
Nakamoto's paper came in and all those things. And that's where it started evolving. Even my points for today is a history and things, how actually it evolved till now. So I'll be covering that
Right.
in further
Nice.
slides.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
well, these are great. Like I mean, like a primer to kind of kickstart. But I'd also like to understand your personal story, your backstory as to how you guys got into this
Yeah.
space. Because the audience would like to know, like get some highlight on that. So yeah, anybody who wants to start, we'll go. Yeah, speakers by speaker.
Ranjan, will you be taking?
Sure, I'll take
Yeah,
this.
Rajan. Yeah, go ahead.
Like Pratik, I also got started with crypto in 2017.
Mhm.
When the entire world suddenly woke up to this Bitcoin because of the price surge, and I started looking at opportunities at what can be done. So one of this from like college days was investing and trading, and how the market moves. And what I could clearly see is there was like a huge demand coming in for cryptocurrencies, and so that got me interested. And I started looking at, okay, what can be some products and like some problems they saw in this market. And what I immediately noticed was that there were a lot of separate exchanges around the world where you can convert between currencies. But uh, what what was happening is, because the volume wasn't quite that much yet, because like this is just we were just getting started. So every exchange had like a different price to these conversions. Like for example, if you go to Bitcoin to Ethereum, like so one exchange might have like a different rate, and another exchange might have a very different rate. And I'm not talking about like a few uh, points. Like I'm talking about like 5-6% difference. So in financial world, that's called arbitrage. So I was like, okay, why don't we design a product which can spot these arbitrage and help traders and investors make money in that process. So I built a tool to spot this arbitrage called coinscanner.co. So what it does is it gets all the live data from different exchanges and basically tell you like what would be the um, best route to get the most cheapest conversion rates for your coin or whatever coin. Like if you want to go from Bitcoin to Ripple or Ripple to XYZ coin, you can just use our tool and we would show you like where the most arbitrages and opportunities to make money. So that was Coinscanner. It did quite well when we initially launched. Like Pratik was with us at that time, and he did a pretty good job at marketing this thing and getting our product hunt. And yeah, we had like some 20,000 visitors in the first week itself. So yeah, it got a good response, but then the whole RBI ban and the crypto crash happened, so we didn't really go forward with the project. But yeah, it was interesting while it was there.
Thanks, Rajan.
Sure.
Saurabh, do you want to?
Yes. So my story is pretty different. Okay. So maybe I can be one of the youngest one on the panel. So I actually started my career as a blogger. I used to cover different technologies on my blog. Initially started with gadgets like more like smartphones, laptops, and stuff. But I thought if I'm defining myself as a tech blogger, then I should create a definition. A lot of tech bloggers in Indian ecosystem today, they unbox gadgets, do a lot of things, but then technology is beyond smartphones. That's what I believe. It was 2016 when I started my blog called Techie Scoops. Eventually, I was covering a lot of technologies, including AI, machine learning, data science, mobile applications, and stuff. And 2017, we heard a term called Bitcoin, and this came eventually through one of the blockchain influencers out of whom I've attended his TED talk and understood what all this technology is all about. I was so fascinated about this thing, man. Like I've heard about the finances growth. I've heard about because 2017 was a peak period as well. It actually took a rise as well. So I thought that I should deep dive into it. I started deep diving into the technology. I understand it actually evolved through blockchain. The underlying technology is blockchain, and eventually we started covering content on my channel. Within 3 months of the span, we got an email by a community based out of Toronto called Cryptonicles. This community ranked our channel in top 3 channels for a week in Asia. So we got a great hype in terms of visitors, in terms of numbers.
Nice.
And the majority of the traction that came was from the conferences that were happening abroad. So one of such conferences we have also met, which one happened in India. I met Pratik, he was on panel. So initially I thought of converting this invites into partnerships, and I started teaching them that I can be a media partner because I was running a media firm. I got an opportunity to visit Thailand for one of the conferences called Blockage Thailand. Once I started going deeper and deeper in the industry, start meeting people, networking around with the folks, I was fascinated with it. And eventually, when I was doing all these things, I traveled 4 5 countries back to back, did clients, made some money, did some savings. I was very much sure that there's something that actually I can solve in the ecosystem or in the space. While I was doing all this, I was very much active on my social media, and people were very curious to know that do I work into Bitcoin. But I was covering content on blockchain, and I wanted to define Bitcoin as one of the applications. That's where I thought that the education, or let's say the awareness, is something which is lagging, at least in the Indian market. Evolved model, came up with the blockchain school. The first draft came, went to Pratik, said that this is what we want to do. He said, good enough, go ahead. The initial plan was just to build e-learning, but eventually we thought of evolving it towards other segments. But the story with cryptocurrency as such is very clear. We did clients, we did 15, 20 clients abroad. I have advised two projects into marketing and media. And all the payments used to come into Bitcoin. We used to hold, we used to take out the money when we used to think that this is the right time. We made money, we lost money. I've also, my wallet got hacked eventually, and that was my mistake. But I had a great journey with cryptocurrencies as such. And now India gave a green flag to cryptocurrencies. Now we think we have seen a good hike in terms of our users as well. Because when it comes to cryptocurrency, when it comes to blockchain, the first term that at least in Indian audience, the layman, I've heard is Bitcoin. And when we used to pitch blockchain, they used to be scared. They used to say that, do you know that government has banned blockchain? I said, no, government has never banned a technology. They've banned an application. So I used to give them easy examples, right? So I used to explain them in terms that in China, WhatsApp is banned, but they have WeChat. Similarly, there's one application built on blockchain. So I had a great journey, and now I think so is a great way ahead with cryptocurrencies and blockchain as such. And yesterday we got a mention in the blockchain or media ecosystem.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite a
nice.
good journey that happened so far. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Nice. Thanks for sharing the story. Neeraj, you want to take this?
Yeah, okay. So I actually heard Bitcoin back in 2012. Okay. So it's just like, people talking about Bitcoin. I've discovered articles in that. To be honest, I never knew how to buy into that or participate in the financial side of it. But I was very curious, got hooked onto it. And in 2013, I was quite actively following people on Twitter. It was a very small community back then. Okay. So it was very easy to find such people who were just talking about Bitcoin itself. So in 2013, I happened to experience my first Bitcoin transaction. So that gave me a very good perspective from these people within the industry. And since then, I've been very active. I've also led marketing for another crypto startup before joining Delta, which was Althea. They were working on decentralized ISP networks based out of SF. And after that, my current stint in Delta Exchange, the things that we are doing in derivative space, it's amazing. And every day I get to learn something new because I don't come from financial background. So the amount of financial products that are being morphed onto the crypto networks is amazing. It's just the beginning. It's very nascent, to be honest. So yeah, that has been my journey. It's a privileged front row seat, to be honest.
Great.
Understanding some of your fascinating stories, and one or two of you also mentioned about one application was sort of banned by the government and not the entire technology as such. Because this technology is so new, right? Do you feel the governments have also sort of, found it challenging to understand what this entire thing is and how to respond to it correctly? Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, yeah, Saurabh.
So when I
Okay.
actually understood this thing, when RBI banned cryptocurrencies, and it took actually 2 years, but nevertheless, it was more of an effort. So a lot of people were signing petitions, going to courts, trying to explain the benefits of cryptocurrency. I was following Nishchal, a founder of WazirX.
Mm-hmm.
He was tweeting each and every day. He was tweeting the benefits of cryptocurrencies. So to be honest, how I understand India has a huge cycle, due to its population and due to the bigger workforce and a lot of things. The challenge with India is if we are trying to just indulge one, let's say, uh, unit into our whole system, there's a bigger challenge because it's a cycle. So government were too much skeptical about a lot of things, because now considering a bigger population, the finance system, if the things goes on blockchain, the regulatory could be a bigger challenge. So now understanding those regulation, understanding the aspects and positive aspects as well for blockchain and cryptocurrencies, they took quite a few months
Yeah.
or years to actually understand the benefits of it. And now they've given a green flag. So that's what my understanding was of out of the whole scene.
And how has that sort of impacted the industry on large in India?
After or before?
Yeah, yeah, after
Yeah. So
after the green flag.
yes. So after the green flag, now I've seen that the moment the good news came that now cryptocurrencies ban has been uplifted. So now what happened is the people who were actually trying to build something in the crypto space, there were a lot of exchanges that were banned. There were a lot of exchanges that actually stopped their operations. They restarted their services. Now, apart from that, like new entrepreneurs like me who are fascinated by the technology were skeptical to get in the ecosystem. Now there are a lot more startups that are coming in, right? WazirX and Binance released a fund for blockchain crypto startups mainly in India. Similarly, there's a lot more infrastructure and platform and support that has been provided by the existing big players in the industry. So I guess the impact overall gonna obviously makes sense because supply chain gonna impact slowly and
Yeah.
steadily. Government will impact. But even when the ban was there, I've seen governments coming together, government of Goa, government of Telangana, collaborating in doing the land registries on blockchain. They're implementing applications on blockchain. And obviously, when it comes to an application, there was tokenizations and a lot more aspects of cryptocurrencies as well. They were considering it, but they gave the green flag much later. Yeah.
Okay. Great to
Yeah,
know.
one thing to add to what Saurabh mentioned about like the green signal and stuff. Essentially, when the ban or the ban actually happened on the banks essentially. So the banks are not allowed to make any crypto-related transactions. So let's say if it is something that you want to withdraw from your exchange or transfer it to, let's say, a fiat or regular currency, that was something was not possible. But at the same time, the speculation market was obviously the ups and downs were always there, and people were obviously finding different ways to kind of see how they can get involved. So during that time, I think I've seen a lot of dev related activity, like developer focused activity, which has kind of splurged in, let's say, like Bangalore, or Pune or Hyderabad. So like specifically Bangalore actually, because I used to work with a company where we were targeting developers essentially. So if we were looking at let's say broader markets around the world in terms of regions, and the growth that the developer ecosystem is like growing essentially from let's say if Bangalore as a city had about 400 developers in 2018, they had about 5,000 developers in 2019 only working on blockchain. So that was still a massive growth, regardless of how the regulatory framework was at that point. the speculation market was obviously not that great, but still people or the believers were still doing things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that I wanted to add. Yeah.
This is really interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Neeraj,
I'll
you had,
just ask.
yeah,
No, no,
sorry,
it's
go
okay.
ahead.
You want to
Yogesh,
say something? Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
no, no,
Just a
Yogesh,
quick
if you're
one.
not comfortable.
When you said that governments have sort of realized the benefits of it, and even when government wasn't sort of pro, still the developers kept on believing, right?
Mhm.
And when you say that, I think it's quite a strong thing, because then I want to kind of just ask and sort of build on further. What are the benefits that people are seeing with this technology, that they want to kind of take this really strong stance?
Mhm.
Okay, so first of all, I'll just add on to the regulatory aspect. First of all, the Indian side and then the global aspect. So, adding on to what Saurabh and Pratik have already added in the Indian scenario. So, first of all, the RBI, which actually enforced or imposed the directive of not allowing the crypto companies to actually transact with the existing financial system. So basically, you need to understand RBI is just a regulatory body, okay, which oversees the banking and financial or the payment systems. Okay, it's not a legal entity. It cannot enforce a legal. It cannot pass a law. Okay, so trading Bitcoin, trading crypto was never banned in first place. Okay, what was actually discussed among the houses was that you cannot use Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency as a legal tender. Okay, so it was not law, it was just actually presented in front of the house. Okay,
Mhm.
now when the RBI actually imposed a ban in around April 2018, if I'm not wrong. So basically, it cut off the fiat on ramps and off ramps within the INR to crypto ecosystem. Okay, so actually that squeezed out a lot of businesses, especially exchanges. Okay, quite obvious. And since now, this is also one reason is why RBI took that space, is because they have to maintain or the local reserves, the currency reserves to the foreign currency reserves. Okay,
Yep.
so in order to stop a lot of capital flight from people converting to crypto and exiting the Indian market. So that's one of the reasons that, as a preemptive measure, RBI passed that directive, though it was not constitutional. That was what was actually Supreme Court's ruling that we all know. And post ruling, obviously the sentiment has sprung back again. As we see, even as an exchange, we saw a surge of users, Indian users, actually signing up, so which is a very positive sign. So that is for the as far as Indian regulatory framework is concerned. But as far as the global scenario is concerned, so you need to understand that this is a very jurisdiction specific issue. Every government is actually struggling to catch up with what frameworks they'll need to decide. For example, US, I've been following their hearings on and off. So they are struggling between defining crypto, whether to classify that as a security or a commodity or a new asset class in itself. So they are taking their own sweet time. In the meanwhile, there's a rush or a race to actually launch CBDCs by government across the globe. So CBDCs are basically central bank digital currencies. Okay, so that's a very different sort of race which is actually started. If you see South Korea, China, I mean. Only it's about time someone actually launches, and it's a different dynamics that will come into a picture. But yeah, I think overall people are not very clear about regulatory frameworks. That's why even masses, they don't actually trust, or unless they get a green signal explicitly from government saying, hey guys, look, crypto is fine, you can go and purchase. But I don't think that will happen very soon, because the whole premise of especially Bitcoin is operating outside of any control, because it's absolutely trustless network in itself. So that's a
Yeah.
very interesting things on seeing how these play out on the longer horizon.
It's almost like governments like to control a lot, and this technology believes in no control.
Absolutely. I mean, they don't require any central entity to actually govern. So if you see central banks and how they work, I mean, just take the interest rates and the power to print infinite money. I mean, this is a lot of power government has. And once you
Yeah.
take that away and have a deflationary setup, which is Bitcoin, which has absolutely fixed supply, which is hard money. Okay, 21 million Bitcoins ever. Okay, it's hard coded. Okay, this is why I say, like, if I have to simply just give one sentence and define Bitcoin, this is what I will give. Okay, so Bitcoin is money originated from code and regulated by math. Okay, that's it. So the consensus, the cryptography, the game theory mechanics inbuilt is just amazing. Okay, so yeah, that's it from me.
Yep. Awesome. Nicely put. And in the recent times, with what's happening with the global.
Rajan, if you want to continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Rajan, you wanted to say something?
No. I just agreed with what Neeraj said, and
Okay.
so one of the things which we forget is that the reason why cryptocurrencies are so exciting is because the value comes from the limited supply, right?
Scarcity.
So the distributed ledger and everything is good, but what really sets this thing apart is like the regulated supply, the limited supply, and that's where it gets the value from.
Yeah, it's the scarcity of resource, and then it essentially turns into a commodity where you talk about store of value, like anything like gold or silver, any commodity, so to speak.
Yeah,
so
which makes it a much more. Go on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, the recent updates that I've been following, let's say the US bailing out with first, I think they came up with a $700 billion package, and now they're actually talking in infinite terms. I mean, there's no definite kind of a number essentially when you're talking about printing money or getting the stimulus package, so to speak. While there are things like UBI, like universal basic income, which maybe are now getting substantialized in the future, maybe once the pandemic gets settled down. I mean, they are also, at this point in time, they are also thinking about getting a digital dollar, a wallet that can be given away to all the citizens, where this digital dollar can act as like a money which is completely 100% digital. And that that whole premise gives cryptocurrency world like a whole different meaning in terms of getting more people like know about it. Like the adoption will increase. Those who are wanting to get into this, the on ramps, like Neeraj mentioned, and off ramps will become easier, not just in the US but across the world. So these are the things that are like happening, and that's why I'm really excited, because things are changing because of one particular event that has essentially happened. So yeah, I mean, great points. I mean, but for the audience, I mean, there have been questions coming up. I think we can take one. And Saurabh, I think you want to take that question. So the question, I'll just read the question out. Can I open any e-commerce store based on crypto in India, considering current rules of RBI on crypto? Saurabh, you want to?
No, actually, Bharat has a question about, so when he opens an e-commerce store, not technology, but he's asking if he can collect the money into cryptocurrencies, right?
Yeah.
So to be honest, the green flag, when it came, trading was never banned, as Neeraj mentioned. And now is a time when actually the acceptance of cryptocurrencies, for sure, because if I see the total count of exchanges as well, they are plus 10, or there are more than 10 or 11 exchanges which are actually operating in India. So obviously you can actually enable the option of accepting cryptocurrency payments, but you'll have to go through certain ways. You can't just like, if you're opening an independent store as an individual or a freelancer, but if you're opening as a company, then there will be certain ways and legalization of process to actually do that. That's what my knowledge is about. Neeraj, if you can add this to it.
I mean, to be honest, I don't have a very specific answer to that because it will involve you as a merchant to accept a currency. So I'm not pretty sure if India actually allows you to, hold or, absolutely be a custodian of the crypto assets. Because what will happen is, maximum, if I'm not wrong, you'll be able to have payment interfaces which actually deal in crypto, and in real time they actually just convert it to fiat. I think that can work because you're not holding someone else's crypto assets, because that's when regulations kick in. Once you actually become a custodian, okay,
Yeah.
and as a merchant, you don't want to get into that territory as of now. That's what I am thinking from my limited knowledge of what regulatory unclarity is there in the scenario
Yeah.
today in India specifically.
Yeah, just one thing to add to that. I think Shopify has like a feature where you can actually enable crypto payments on your e-commerce platform. But again, the regulatory framework is completely different for different regions. So that's something that you need to look at before starting off something like that. One basic question I wanted to ask speakers, and this I think will be good for the audience, is essentially how can like we've been discussing about on-ramps and off-ramps, right? So like today or right now, how can people get in or buy their first, I don't know, crypto? Like what's the process? And yeah, I mean, Neeraj, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I have tweeted about this a lot of time because I get asked these questions from my Indian friends and peers around that how actually you can get in and purchase. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this is something which I have personally tried and I have bought. Okay, so I am suggesting only the things which I have tried myself, and I have the trust in the platform itself. Okay, now Vasirex.com is a really good platform. Like I think Saurabh mentioned earlier, Nishal Shetty runs it. I mean, I have been following Nishal and Siddharth since a long time. We both are connected on Twitter. I've seen those guys. It's a nice product. It's very seamless. You can actually have your INR, which is Indian rupees, actually just sign up, do a KYC process, because it does not allow you to deposit or withdraw without any KYC, without doing any KYC. Okay, so that is very important. So once you have your KYCs in place and the account is verified, then you can go ahead and actually deposit your INR and then convert it or directly purchase any of the crypto listed in their exchange. Okay, it's a spot exchange. Okay, now only a bit of advice that I can give is, if somehow you are not able to do that, then you can actually go, there are a lot of other avenues, like cex.io, for example, where you can directly go and purchase using your credit card. But again, remember that credit card fees is on top of what you pay. Okay, so that is one drawback. Okay, and secondly, just a word of caution, that before you jump in and buy something, okay, irrespective of the amount, just educate yourself on how to custody your crypto assets. Okay, because that's the most important thing to learn, because the very premise of crypto assets is that you have to be a custodian of crypto assets yourself. Okay, which means, put it simply, if you go onto an exchange like Wazirex or any other exchange or place where you buy crypto assets from your fiat currency, you do not leave your crypto assets there on their platform. Okay, because it's a security risk and they hold your private keys. Okay, the best way is to actually take your crypto assets outside into your personal wallets. Okay, now you can just if you have time to study these terms, I won't go into detail because I'll just take too much time to just explain the basics, so I'll just leave it there. But be mindful of actually self-custodying your crypto assets, because that's the most important thing that has happened with crypto, is not relying on third parties to custody. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be adding, let's say, in the show notes, I'll be adding a few things as well for the ones, I mean, the things that you mentioned, or like say a glossary of terms,
Yeah.
and so on.
Okay.
So just one point.
Yeah,
This is
Rajan.
a warning for like people who are interested in trading cryptocurrencies and then buying and converting them. So when you say cex.io, I'm not sure if it's an Indian company. I think it's registered
UK
offshore.
based.
It's a
Yeah,
UK
yeah.
based, right? Okay. So I would avoid any offshore exchanges as of now, because we are
Okay.
not quite sure like how they are treating this thing. Like, does it come under the FEMA regulations and all those things? So yeah, just to avoid some of the troubles, just stick to those Indian exchanges. Wazirex is pretty good. You can use that, and yeah, just keep it in your wallet. But yeah, don't transfer it offshore. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah.
Pratik, I would, just like to chip in with a question here. And at the
Sure.
start of the conversation, somebody said, the moment you mention cryptocurrency and blockchain, the next term people come up with is Bitcoin. And we're talking about, trading and all of that. So I would like to ask, what are the different cryptocurrencies one could look at? And what are the different features of those currencies for people to consider?
Neeraj, will you take that question?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So we'll have to come to the basics. Okay, so there are something which are called as tokens and something which are called coins. Okay, so the basic fundamental difference between coins and tokens is something which is issued on their own respective standalone blockchain. Okay, so for example, Bitcoin is a standalone blockchain of its own. Okay,
Yep.
Ethereum is a standalone blockchain of its own. Okay, now when you talk about tokens, now tokens are basically something which you can issue on an existing blockchain. Okay, so for example, Ethereum, the whole ICO boom that happened was basically new tokens being issued on Ethereum blockchain, and it was ERC20. That's what they are called. So they are different. Basically, they are termed differently for different purpose that they have. So for example, if you have NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, it's I think ERC 721. So a lot of these are available, I think more than 3,000 if I'm not wrong on coin market cap. Okay, now you need to understand not all of them are actually competing or even want to be fiat currencies. Okay, not at all. Okay, now these tokens and some coins are basically classified into various aspects like work tokens, utility tokens, and basically these are tokens which actually give access to use the service within that blockchain ecosystem. So for example, if I give an example of Filecoin, okay, so basically Filecoins, using Filecoins, you can actually access a distributed memory, okay, computing memory. Okay, so it's just like Dropbox but decentralized. Okay, so basically Ethereum is decentralized computing. Okay, so you can actually use Ethereum by there's a gas fee involved and all of that, but actually you can do that by using ETH tokens. Okay, if you want to launch ICOs, you can raise money in ETH and then get tokens on the other end. Okay, something like that. So each blockchain has its own design, own consensus system, and own mechanics of incentivization. Okay, and each token is basically tied to within those mechanics. Okay, not everyone or not every token or coin is actually competing to be a fiat currency. Okay, so Bitcoin is one of the great examples of like it's a hybrid right now between hybrid is in transitioning between like store of value to medium of exchange. Okay, eventually, because right now it's very volatile, it cannot be even compared to a currency. Okay, but Bitcoin is something which is like you can compare, or it's a future contender for maybe a sovereign reserve, or a currency going ahead as a global currency. So yeah.
Great stuff. Just Pratik, you want to ask something?
No, you have, yeah, not me.
Okay. I wanted to ask another question in terms of, for somebody who is sort of getting into this field, and I sort of use the analogy of, investors looking to diversify their sort of, investments into different stocks and uh, fixed deposit options and mutual funds and so on and so forth. So anybody who enters into this field of cryptocurrency and exchanges, right? How should they approach diversification?
I think Rajan would be the right person to get
Sure,
this.
sure, I can take this one.
Yeah.
So do you mean diversification in sense of the cryptocurrencies itself,
Yeah.
or how much of
Yeah.
your overall portfolio should be given to
Both. I think
cryptocurrencies?
both. So for instance, you got conventional investments and
Yeah,
you got crypto investments, and within crypto investments also, whether you
right,
invest in Bitcoin or whether you also look at other options. So what kind of strategy one should sort of
right. So for
consider?
your overall portfolio, I guess it all comes down to your risk appetite. So for someone who's young in their 20s and want to take more risk and really believe in this project, like for example, all of us, like we strongly believe that this is here to stay, and there are like some major events coming up, like the Bitcoin halving, which is
Yep.
like Neeraj can shed more light at sometime in May, I guess. Um, so yeah, that will be pretty phenomenal
Yeah, for
in
those who
terms of
don't
like the
know,
value.
can you
So,
explain Bitcoin halving? Sorry. Yeah.
so I won't be the best person to explain the
Okay.
technicalities of what exactly is the event. So
Sure.
all I basically know is that the supply of Bitcoin is going to be reduced in half, because that's
Yep.
what happens.
Mhm.
Like every few blocks are mined, like the supply is reduced even further,
Yep.
so that we maintain a balance, basically, because we are generating new blocks every time we do the mining thing. So we need to artificially destroy some of the blocks. So
Sure.
the value of the currency still remains, which is quite contrary to what fiat money is like, where basically you print infinite number of money, and the money just sitting there keeps losing its value, keeps losing its purchasing power. So in that regards, Bitcoin is quite contrary to that. But yeah, what you were saying about investment and your portfolio allocation, I guess anywhere between 20 to 30% for a young individual is good enough. Um, if you're planning on putting your retirement money into it, I wouldn't suggest that. But yeah, 20 to 30% I would suggest is good. And when it comes to like cryptocurrencies, I would say the only stable one which we know for now is like Bitcoin. So just stick to the big one, and yeah, for the time being, avoid the other new
Yeah.
ICOs or maybe even like Ethereum tokens. That's my opinion.
I just see Neeraj raising his hand. Go
Yeah.
for it, Neeraj.
Good.
Yeah. So I'll just throw some light on Bitcoin halving in very simple terms. Okay. So basically, how Bitcoins are created is whenever a miner is adding a block to the blockchain. Okay. So he gets rewarded Bitcoin. That reward is gets half every 4 years. Okay. Now what? Starting with 50 Bitcoins. Okay. So if you just cut down 4 years, current one like 50, 25, 12.5, the current reward is 12.5 Bitcoins for every block added. That's the reward that a miner gets for verifying a successful block. And now in around May 13, it will actually be cut into half to 6.25 Bitcoins. So this is where your supply comes from. This is where it gets originated. Bitcoins are actually created as a minor reward. Okay, so that's where the game theory mechanics and the incentivization is put in or baked into the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. To add to what Rajan and Neeraj said in terms of diversification of your portfolio, it's not just cryptocurrencies that you can stick to. Within crypto, there is a completely different industry that is growing, which is DeFi. DeFi is essentially decentralized finance. And the way we put it, or like from where I come from, essentially we say that DeFi is essentially fintech 2.0. For those who understand fintech, it's essentially finance based on like the new technologies or the apps that you use every day to transact your money or to send money to like on the internet. Essentially, DeFi is like a step ahead. You're talking about whatever we spoke about, like in the stock, about it being decentralized, it not having intermediaries, it not having the third party, so to speak. You basically have you experience that kind of like a money by your own, and you own that particular thing. Nobody owns that for you. Let's say a bank or government. So within DeFi, there are different products that are available. So whatever that you can think of in terms of your traditional financial setup. Let's say you're talking about fixed deposits in North America, it's like interest rates. You're talking about like derivatives exchange, which Neeraj is working on. I mean, even that. So all kinds of products are now available in the DeFi space, and some of the protocols are doing it really well. Like I can name a few protocols to be specific. MakerDAO specifically is one of the protocols which caters to like having a decentralized stable coin. Like a stable coin is essentially pegged to something. The way Bitcoin, I mean, essentially is not pegged to any currency, but it keeps going up and down depending on the market speculation. A stable coin never goes up and down. It's always stable, and it's pegged to US dollar, to be specific. Now, if you have that particular currency, and MakerDAO has something called as DAI, so you can use that DAI to do essentially everything. Let's say if you want to lend that DAI and earn interest on top of that, you can do that. And today the interest rates, the interest rates in the crypto space also depend on the price of the crypto at that particular point in time. So let's say Ethereum right now it's going down, so the interest rates are also going down. But for what I know, like the average interest rate that's there in let's say MakerDAO system is always on the higher side compared to the interest rates that you get in the traditional financial world. So, and then there is, like I said, derivatives exchange. You can also have collateralized loans on top of these products. You can also do flash loans. There's a company called Aave based out of London who does flash loans as well, which means you essentially, I mean, as long as you have crypto in your wallet, you get a loan based on how much crypto you have, and you get it quickly. Right. So yeah, I mean, there are you can definitely diversify into the space, and not just the coins that you own. So you can essentially make these coins run for you, or like have they, I mean, you have them, yeah, I mean, you work them out essentially. Yeah.
Great. Neeraj, you want to carry
Yes,
on?
just to add to what the panelist has said already. So just please understand, before even you get into the mindset of actually investing or allocating some form of budget into crypto, okay, just be mindful of where you get information. Okay, if you're getting information from mass sources of media, just avoid them completely, because they are fear driven. Okay, I have seen, trust me on this, I've been active since a long time. I have watched this ecosystem grow in front of my eyes, and I have seen absolute garbage coming out of a lot of these publications. Okay, I say it without a hitch. Okay, there are absolutely few journalists who are very responsible, and they're doing an excellent job at that. I won't deny it. Okay, but if you see mass media or mass journalists, oh my god, the fear, because it's actually driven from just the price rises and cash, basically the volatility. Okay, and since this is a very new and nascent asset class, the volatility is basically bound to happen. I mean, it's a free market. This, to be honest, this is the only free market you're experiencing. If you see your S&P 500, the stock exchange, American stock exchanges, what is happening in the current scenario? They're actually hitting circuit breakers. Okay, that means they're actually the stocks. You are actually shutting off stock exchange to avoid a certain kind of drawdown. Okay, because it's not a free market. Okay, you don't have friends sitting there and propping up money or printing endless amount of cash here. Okay, this is actually governed by maths. Okay, that's a fundamental difference. So I'll urge the listeners, okay, so please spend time to educate, reach out to any one of us. We'll be more than happy to point out to you resources and whom you should actually trust and take your advices from, or get yourself educated from. So I'll just give you a small rundown who is involved in this space. I mean, there is a plethora of big names involved from various backgrounds. Okay, and you need to understand crypto is like a melting pot of multiple fields in one. So right from legal, tech, financial, regulatory, I mean, it's insane. Okay, now you need to understand, if guys like Tim Draper, who was invested in Skype in the early days, okay, he was associated in building some of the most successful tech companies, when he wears a tie on the stage and has been saying this, that Bitcoin is the future and crypto is promising, you need to understand these guys have made money, more than money. I mean, we can imagine. Okay, so they don't do it because they are getting paid from Mr. Bitcoin CEO sitting in the office. There is no CEO of Bitcoin. Okay, there is no customer support. There is no CMO. Okay, you need to understand that. Secondly, you need to understand from the technical aspect. There are people who have invented like voice over internet protocol. I mean, if I'm not wrong, Alex from Celsius Network. I mean, that he has started a crypto network or a crypto company. I mean, these are the people who have seen built internet foundations from protocol layer. And when they say they are bullish on crypto, hedge fund people like Mark Yusko, Raul Paul, I mean, you can just Google these names. If they are involved, MIT PhDs like running MIT labs, currency lab. I mean, you should Google these names, Google their work, what they have done. Andreas Antonopoulos, an amazing speaker. I mean, I think segue into that, what resources we should have. I can just give a list and list. I'll speak here, but I mean, you guys can touch upon different points if you want.
Absolutely.
That's, I think that's absolutely fabulous. And you spoke, I think, about two key things there. One is obviously that there are going to be ups and downs. That's but natural. The second is also, because these are non-conventional sort of sources, still people are still slightly, afraid, or what can I say, the bit, they sort of hold back a bit with sort of before getting into that ride. Now, when I was preparing for this session in terms of what questions, etc., a friend of mine, he sent me saying, how do people stay away from frauds associated with this space? And somehow, that's made quite news. Neeraj, you spoke that, please verify what sources you're getting your information from. So can you please throw a bit of a light on this?
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about frauds, you need to understand that frauds or the hacking which has ever happened in the Bitcoin blockchain space primarily resorted or attributed to two things. One, either the exchange or the wallet or the third party service where you're holding your assets, they are getting hacked. Or second, someone has actually come up with a project which is a scam in itself. It can be a pyramid scheme, it can be a casino, okay, it can be any speculative asset which is like on steroids, okay, and it's completely scam or red flag, okay. So please stay away from those. As far as exchanges are concerned, especially spot exchanges where usually retail investors first get their experience of actually buying into a crypto asset and then converting it or selling, buying very basic stuff. So like I said, visiting my earlier conversation, that you need to learn how to custody your wallet. You need to just Google these terms. What is a hot wallet? What is a cold wallet? Okay. So cold wallet is something which will allow you to actually custody your crypto assets. So basically, when you say you have a coin or a token on an exchange or a wallet, basically it's just a private key. It's just private key. Okay. So private key is something like a password, which is an access which will give you to actually spend a transaction from that particular blockchain. Okay. So there are no imaginary coins. There is no arcade token thing happening. Okay. There is no Mario coins to be won here. It's just the private key which goes into your wallet, whether it's hot wallet on exchanges or software wallets like MetaMask. You have cold wallets where I'll highly advise and recommend to get yourself educated on, which are like Ledger, which is a simple hardware wallet, or a more traditional one, which I won't recommend much, is a paper wallet, which is actually a Stone Age way of actually writing down your string of private key. Just don't do that. Okay. So please educate yourself on how to custody. Just Google this, how to custody Bitcoin. That's it. You'll learn far more. I mean, you become your own bank in the truest form. You'll never experience wealth custody like you did, because entrusting banks with your money, like you've seen a lot of banks fail, a lot of people are not able to get money out. That happens because you have trusted a centralized third party. This is exactly what Bitcoin aims to eliminate. Okay, you don't have to take permission. There is no CEO to go and call and swear out. Nothing at all. Just secure your own private key and you'll be good. That's it. I mean, as simple as that.
Excellent. That's great to know.
That's a great insight. Yeah. So we'll take another question here. Udit has asked, which are the well-known retailers that accept payments through crypto? I think I know Expedia does it. Any other e-commerce platforms?
Saurabh? KFC Canada does it. KFC accepts cryptocurrencies in Canada. I want to add something to our previous discussion. All the Neeraj added very great points that the custody, the previous check, or let's say the study about those points. I want to add something which happened with one of my colleague. 2017 ICO burst, and actually thousands of ICOs and tokens were big scams. So what happened is, even in India, if I talk about, there was a project which came up with the statement that they are actually building cryptocurrency towards the properties, towards the societies that they build, or towards the big infra projects.
Real estate.
So they started collecting money from audience, and a lot of my people from hometown, I come from a small town called Wardha, and they were not very much aware about all these things, so they were just fascinated with the amount of returns that these people have promised them. Now, a lot of time what happens is, a lot of people reached out to me saying that they have this token, that token. But one thing that is very sure, before even understanding the custody, understanding all those legalizations and things, that are these tokens even on exchanges, listed on exchanges? A lot of token comes out, a lot of ICOs came out, they were not listed on public exchanges, and then they were promising huge returns in future. their white papers were bullshit. Their vision was actually not making too much sense. They were actually overvaluing their own vision. So I guess doing homework is must, and again checking things that what actually, apart from media, what influencers or exchanges are speaking about these tokens. So that is also one much needed thing for a layman who is starting up investing into tokens or cryptocurrencies in the market. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, just to add a small little point that, see, it's still a speculative class. Okay, the whole asset class is still very speculative. Okay, only risk the amount of money that you're willing to lose. And according to me, if you're very new to the crypto space, just focus on two things. One is Bitcoin, one is Ethereum. Okay,
Yeah.
these, just because just studying even Bitcoin takes a lot of time. The rabbit hole is far too deep and it's insane. Okay, study Ethereum, because Ethereum then will naturally foray you into topics like, as Pratik mentioned, decentralized finance, stable coins. Then you have credit, the whole credit system, which is lending, borrowing. So we will open a plethora of options. But first, start with Bitcoin, then foray into Ethereum, then learn to custody your assets. That's the three main takeaways if you can from this.
Nice.
Wonderful.
Great. We'll take a few more questions here. There's Varun who's asking about CBDC. I think Neeraj, you can take this. Crypto investors should be scared of CBDC. Do you think if all nation came up with the CBDC, they would have indefinite supply like fiat?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not wrong, CBDC versus Libra, I think that's a good sort of fitting match. Okay, when you have CBDC, anything which has the word central bank, okay, I mean, Bitcoin is already one. Okay, so no matter who comes up with that, even the strongest, even China, USA. Okay, so the moment the first Genesis block was mined, Bitcoin had won. Okay, let me give you that. Okay, let me give you that. So because it has been 11 years till now, there is not a single case of actual Bitcoin being hacked, nor a 51% attack on the
attack. Yeah,
I mean, it has weathered. It is a hard asset. Okay, so you need to understand these things, that Bitcoin has existed since 11 years. Okay, it has suffered a lot of ups and downs on a lot of things, like from the tech side, from attacks, from regulatory side, from the prices. I mean, it has weathered a lot of things. I mean, look at the prices of Bitcoin even at a global pandemic, where your stock market volatility is insane. You have never seen such volatility in stock markets. The US Fed is pumping $6 trillion. $6 trillion is a big amount. Okay. Now, I don't know what the repercussions or what will actually, this lead to the lower masses, but it is insane. Even if there is CBDC, the core properties are still not challenged. Okay. There are still run by central banks on their, let's say, permissioned blockchain, if you must say. So this is a public blockchain. Bitcoin is run by public blockchain. There is no central party which is validating nodes. Across the world, you can just download a node or become a miner. I mean, only when you do it, you will understand the power of Bitcoin. So I would say just experience it first. And no matter the theory and the promotion that CBDCs do, it's a different dynamic.
Yep.
There's an interesting question I read here, and it says, how do I explain the concept of Bitcoin to my father in simple words?
Okay, so I used to get, on Twitter also, I used to get, how do you explain to a 4-year-old? How do you explain this to my grandma? I mean, this is either Pratik or anyone from the panelists, to be honest, you must have come across. So to be honest, it's very difficult to see. You must understand. It's a generation, it's a consumer behavior also needs to be looked at. Okay, if someone who has been used to cash or used to gold as a store of value, okay, now suddenly go and full offload jargons and say, look at this beautiful thing and look at the all-time highs. Okay, now they'll just just laugh at you, most of them. Okay, because they have never experienced thing like that, which is intangible, which does not derive value from traditional attributes like cash flows, revenues, assets. Like it's nothing like that going on for Bitcoin. Bitcoin has completely different underlying. So you have network value. Okay, you have millennial adoption and Gen Z adoption going ahead.
Yep.
So I mean, just ask the question: how many people would actually love to hold Bitcoin, and how many of them would want to have Bitcoin? I mean, if you talk this, like, give the option to a Gen Z person, like mobile first generation, I don't think I won't be surprised if like they'll curse you that what is gold, you know. So I mean, these things need to be taken into account, the consumer behavior, digital first. So you know, a lot of things are involved in this.
Nice, excellent. That's
Interesting.
good.
Also, like matter of mass adoption as well. You know, like how I compare to is this: people today use UPIs. People today are comfortable with Phone Pay, Google Pay, Paytms, and stuff. But tell me one thing: when these things evolved, when this thing actually came in existence, do you even imagine that this was easy to influence from like generation barrier thing? So I think so. When it will be in mass adoption, or when this will be more, let's say, in the game or in the market happening. So when two peoples will start exchanging this on regular basis, maybe some years down the line, that's where we'll be able to explain our parents in an easy term. Today we can just say that it's an internet money, and that's all.
I think we have a couple of more questions, and we are actually we don't have time as well. But sorry.
A couple of people have said, what should I read or watch to understand all the terms you are using to understand Bitcoin easily? And then I remember Neeraj said, there are a few resources that he'd like to recommend. And perhaps, this is that kind of a time when Neeraj should actually explain the further resources for people to, build on their understanding.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that a lot of like all my other panelists were equally exposed to the same material, which has come from a lot of these experts. Okay, there's no rocket science which I have, which a lot of others don't have. You just have to be patient and actually spend time. Okay, that's what I've learned. A lot of people actually, unfortunately, they don't get time, and they don't actually sit and invest to actually self-learn. Okay, and having said that, the resources which I would recommend right now, which are coming on top of my head, Pratik, I think it'll be better if after the show you just mention.
I'll just put everything in the show notes. Yeah.
So one good resource is Andreas Antonopoulos. His YouTube channel, I mean, he gives a good macro overview of that why you need Bitcoin versus how does the banking system works in plain English. Okay, so that is one good resource, which is a good starting point. Second is if you want to have slightly more technical and glossary show notes, there are a lot of these companies like even Coinbase, Ledger, Binance Academy. So they do have their own sets of reading material, which is pretty much standard because it is being taken from the Bitcoin PDF or from other standard libraries. Okay, and third, you can go to lopp.net. Okay, so this is one of the, I think, core contributors.
He was one of the cypherpunks.
He has put amazing resource. So it's an amazing resource for Bitcoin. Okay, now for the rest, I think just get over with this first. It's enough material, and then I think he'll eventually get into Ethereum and stuff like that. I'm sure Saurabh and Rajan and
I've seen a few questions in our chat bot as well, the chat box as well. I would love to add something to this. We have 50. I can provide them with my email or social or anything. Free courses which are listed on my platform, and the courses that we have created has been verified through experts. We have a apps and all those other stuff that people are asking in the chat box. So resources wise, there are a lot of resources. Media is something which can't be trusted in the first place, right? There are a set of influencers, the set of people who stick to it. The one really good thing that I love is people are actually getting into it. That's all. So they are fascinated with it. And yes, so his bio says only Bitcoin. The bio only mentioned Bitcoin. So he only invests into Bitcoin. He's holding into Bitcoin and he's much sure about it. So I guess influencers were speaking about him. The Neeraj mentioned few names. I guess those will be worth watching or following. Plus a homework that is very much needed.
Nice.
I was not knowing any names of influencers initially. I did research on my own. So I used to read a lot of research papers, which will help much because research papers are verified sources as well.
Yeah.
You know, so media comes the news part, but research papers are one of the good things which I personally think can be good resources
Great stuff.
to
Thank you.
know about technology or.
Neeraj, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I mean, just adding to what Saurabh said regarding, Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, adding. So I'll just name drop something like, even Edward Snowden recently said, I actually bought my first Bitcoin. Okay, now this guy is a whistleblower.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know the story. He's all over, even Netflix, he has a documentary on that. So big name again. And that guy comes from a cybersecurity space. Okay,
Yes.
now when he says, I mean, you should at least listen and educate. Forget about investing. Okay. I never tell people to just blindly go and invest and just, go buy into hype. Just educate what is being offered. Okay. And secondly, I was just on this podcast. I was hearing Shamat. Okay. Shamat is a guy who ran growth for Facebook. He runs Social Capital, which is an investment fund. So his firm, by the way, did $1.7 billion last year. They earned that much. Okay. Yeah. And Chamath is a guy who actually bought Bitcoins back in 2013 when I experienced my first Bitcoin transaction. But obviously he bought a lot of them. Okay. So I think at that time, it was 5% of circulating supply at that time. Okay. Around $80. Okay. And since then, he has not even invested. Okay. He's just sitting on an insane load of Bitcoins. And so, I mean, these are big names who have seen tech grow, like I said before. So you must actually visit and read their thoughts, that what they have to say about Bitcoin and crypto as a whole.
Excellent. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. I think, let me see if there are more questions we can take. Okay, I'll be sharing the social media links of all the panelists in the show notes. So please don't worry about that. Okay. There's one more question from Udit. Will crypto be widely accepted as a cryptocurrency anytime soon, or remain more of a commodity? Rajan, do you want to take that question?
Sure, Pratik. Can you repeat the question because I can't see it?
Yeah, will crypto be widely accepted as a currency anytime soon, or remain more of a commodity? That's the question.
Pratik, I think it's too early to say anything about what it's like. Is it a currency? We know for sure that it's a. I'm sorry about that, the background noise. One thing we know for sure is that it does have value because it's like Neeraj said, it withstood this entire pandemic, where the entire stock markets and everything else is losing its value. Bitcoin might even be the least corrected asset so far, there's definitely value in there. I'm not sure what's fair to call this thing. It has value. It's transactable. It's here to stay. Call it whatever. It's here to stay. Or it might even have an asset class of its own, like called cryptocurrency. It might even get that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Status. Neeraj,
Saurabh, do you want to? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
So
Neeraj, Saurabh, both of you. Yeah.
So one biggest threat that the whole of crypto, including Bitcoin, has is someone actually tweeted this. I came across that people not caring enough. This is very profound. Forget about regulations. Forget about all the fancy tech. For the monetary of Bitcoin itself, which is absolutely superior. But if not enough people care about it, then it'll just be another sort of fancy technology. So this is one very good thing. We should not be naive enough just because we love something and be blinded. So this is a very important point, a small point that I wanted to mention.
Great. Okay, there's one more question. What do you think about Dapps? For those who don't know, Dapps are essentially decentralized applications, which are completely run on the blockchain. So yeah, Saurabh, do you want to take that question?
Actually go for so I won't be going into details because again it's a very vast thing, but I think so it's actually a good way to actually start with. So the ways applications are evolving, ways the options are evolving, I think so pretty much good option. But the question was to actually get the explanation about the apps.
Yeah, what do you think about Dapps? Like, what's your opinion on Dapps?
I have a positive thought process around it, because my own lot of colleagues are building it, and I've been looking at the innovation side of it. So I've seen a lot of business and a lot of products or innovations are happening in the space. But still, again, like there's a long way to go ahead. It's too early as well. A lot more products already came, but still a lot of the applications are yet to explore. One of the good things for specific for DApps that we are doing at Blockchain School is we are hunting for existing applications or hunting for existing models to create into use cases to bring in front of
Right.
people. You know,
Okay.
so I think so. The way we are getting educated today, it's through theories, it's through practicals. But to the technology like blockchain or to the terms like cryptocurrency, we still think that the more of use cases and the more of examples, if we break down in the term of technology, the business model, the marketing model, if we break it down in terms of use cases and theories, I guess that will help a user to understand it better. So tomorrow, if I think of creating an e-commerce venture, if I think of creating a wallet on Bitcoin, or blockchain, so I'll be easily able to do that if I have a ready use case in front of me, that how
Yeah.
the steps went or how it is created. So for DApps, yes, we are positive and we are exploring few use cases into it so far.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think we have covered all the questions. There's one
We
more
have.
question from Ishwar, who's yeah, being from a finance field, I want to enter in DeFi. So DeFi is decentralized finance, but having no background into blockchain, how do I get into it?
Mm.
Who wants to take that question?
To whom I actually I answered that if he reaches out to me, I'll help with the maximum free courses or resources, and I'm actually selling on the platform. It's okay because
Oh, okay.
it's COVID, it's lockdown, and the best value that we can provide, I can help at my best. That's all. Right?
Wonderful.
We are creating course on DeFi as well, so anything would do. We'll love to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't need to have a background in this space. You can just learn things as we've been learning for the past few years, and yeah, just keep adding value in on the way. So yeah, do you want to close this, Yogesh? I mean, any closing remarks or yeah?
Sure. I think, from somebody who sort of came into this conversation, completely as a layman, right? I think I've gained a lot from this conversation. The things that I've learned is this is a technology that is for the future. This is the technology that has shown immense promise. This is the technology that is trusted by some of the finest brains in the world, right? It's not a question of whether this technology will take off or not. It's a matter of time, and these are sort of early days. For the people who can realize the value from it, for the people who can do the research and sort of put hours into it to understand and find the authentic sources to learn about it, there is great benefit to be reaped. Obviously, it's a field that will also require caution, and I think that word of advice has been taken very strongly. Thank you, Neeraj, for that. Thank you, Saurabh, also for explaining some of the brilliant use cases that are coming up. Thank you, Rajan, for also sort of adding your advice to the wider discussion. And Pratik, thank you for being sort of the force behind this conversation. I feel that this is a technology that is here to stay. People can reap great benefits if we are careful about it, as Neeraj was saying towards the end, that enough people should just care about it, and that's a lesson that I take out of it.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Yogesh. Thanks everyone for tuning in. This episode will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. I'll just put this in the chat here for everyone to follow. I mean, you can, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get the notifications when this is up, and ask more questions. I mean, I'll get back to the speakers to answer your questions again, like in that. I'll leave you at that, guys. Thank you again and have a great time and stay safe. Thank you.